Please note this episode is best experienced with headphones. The reflections shared in this episode are personal and interpretive, offered as a way of thinking about history and belief, rather than as proof of anything beyond what is known. Welcome to the Beyond Haunted UK podcast. Thank you for listening, wherever you are. Before we begin, I'd like to dedicate this episode to my wonderful friends Steve and Justice. We share a deep fascination with the ancient Egyptians, but more than that, they remind me how strong bonds could form across time and across oceans, and how those connections can leave a lasting imprint on our lives. Their friendship is a quiet reminder that some connections feel deeper than circumstance, and that in the vastness of the universe, all of us, people, nature, and everything around us, are connected in ways we're still learning to understand. Now, tonight's episode isn't about a haunting in the usual sense. It's about something much older. Older than any building we've walked through, and older than any story we've told here before. This episode will be a personal favourite of mine, as I've been fascinated by ancient Egypt for as long as I can remember. My first real encounter with ancient Egypt began in primary school. I can still remember my teacher showing me a small figure of the Egyptian god Anubis, and photographs from his travels to the pyramids. From that moment on, I felt as though something deeper had stirred in me. Maybe as if I'd remembered something, as though the ancient world felt strangely familiar. And from then on, the magic of that distant past became quietly woven into my imagination. Now you might begin to wonder what ancient Egypt has to do with the paranormal. But when you look back through time, the ancient Egyptians devoted much of their lives to preparing for what they believed came after death. From the Book of the Dead, to mummified bodies, to burial rituals, their world was shaped by an understanding of life that moved beyond the physical. It speaks of a worldview that embraced the unseen in ways that feel distant to us now. And this story, at its heart, is about the way human beings have always looked up and wondered what, if anything, was looking back. And about how we've always tried to understand our place within something far larger than ourselves. Now our story begins in 1922, when Tutankhamun's tomb was opened and the world became fascinated by what lay inside. Gold, masks, amulets, and objects created to accompany a young king into the afterlife. But among the familiar symbols of power and eternity were two objects that carried a quieter kind of meaning. Firstly, a dagger forged from meteoric iron, and a scarab carved from Libyan Desert Glass. Now both of these materials came from the sky. Long before iron was widely used on Earth, fragments of meteorite would fall from space and be found scattered across deserts and plains. And to the ancient cultures, these fragments were rare, unusual, unlike anything they could create themselves. In ancient Egypt, iron from meteorites was known as iron from the heavens. It wasn't just material. It was something believed to carry an origin beyond the ordinary world. So, when Tutankhamun was buried with a blade made from something that had once travelled through space, it wasn't simply about craftsmanship. It carried meaning. The Libyan Desert Glass scarab tells a similar story. This glass was formed thousands of years before Tutankhamun's reign, created by the intense heat of a meteorite impact in the Sahara. It was gathered, shaped, and worn as something precious. The scarab itself symbolised renewal, the rising sun and the cycle of life. To pair that symbol with material born from cosmic fire feels deliberate, as though the object was meant to carry not just beauty, but origin. And this is where I find myself slowing down when I think about these items. So did the ancient Egyptians know these materials came from beyond Earth? Did they maybe possess a kind of understanding that we no longer recognise? And I find myself asking similar questions about many ancient civilizations, and whether they held a deeper awareness of our place in the wider universe. They may not have known what a meteorite was in scientific terms, but they knew those stones were different. They knew they fell from the sky, and they named them that way. And when something comes from above, from beyond what we can reach, it tends to gather meaning. Across cultures, the sky has always been where people place their questions. Gods, afterlives, destinies and wishes. The heavens were not just space. They were story. So when fragments of that vast unreachable place fell into human hands, it's not difficult to imagine how they might have been treated. With care, with reverence and with curiosity. To hold something that once travelled through the darkness between worlds must have felt significant. Not because it answered anything, but because it carried the weight of elsewhere. And in that sense, Tutankhamun's tomb doesn't just tell us about death and royalty. It tells us how long humans have been drawn to what lies beyond our world. They weren't only thinking about the afterlife. They were thinking about the stars and what might exist beyond their own lives. We often talk about modern fascination with the cosmos as though it's new. Rockets, telescopes, and the search for life beyond Earth. But the instinct itself is ancient. Long before telescopes, people were already weaving meaning into the night sky. And long before space travel, people were already holding fragments of the universe in their hands and wondering what they meant. Long before Victorian seances sought to entertain, ancient cultures carried profound beliefs about death and continuity. For the ancient Egyptians, being remembered, having your name spoken, was a form of immortality, and in a way, Tutankhamun achieved exactly that. It makes you wonder how many other objects of cosmic origin may have been lost to time, stolen, broken or forgotten. The dagger and the scarab were not curiosities in a cabinet. They were chosen, placed with intention, carried into the afterlife as part of what a king would take with him beyond this world. And that makes me wonder whether our fascination with the cosmos has ever really changed. We still collect meteorites. We still look up to the night sky and feel something stir. And we still wonder whether what's out there has any relationship to us here. The language has changed. The tools have changed. But the feeling feels familiar. In the paranormal, we often speak about thresholds in the space between the living and the dead. Churches were once built with lich gates, marking the crossing from the everyday world into consecrated ground. Between life and death, between places, and between states of being. Meteorites, in their own quiet way, cross a similar boundary. They fall from somewhere unreachable into the ordinary world, and they move between realms. And maybe that's why they've always carried meaning. Not because they offer answers, but because they remind us that we exist within something vast. Standing in museums looking at Tutankhamun's treasures, it's easy to focus on gold and grandeur. But sometimes in the quieter objects that speak more deeply, a blade shaped from a fallen star, and a piece of glass formed by ancient fire from the sky. Objects that remind us that long before we built monuments, we were already looking upward, already wondering what it meant to be here. And maybe in some small way we still are. Wherever you are tonight, if you find yourself looking up at the night sky, you're doing something humans have done for thousands of years. Trying to understand what it means to exist beneath something so vast. Thank you for listening to the Beyond Haunted UK podcast. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can follow us on Spotify and across social media. Every follow, every share, and every message helps this community grow and keeps these reflections alive. Thank you for listening.